I'm not going to try and hide who this is made by because it's on the box. I'm quite excited about this. It's my latest purchase. I'm going to open it for you, show you what's in there. I'll be using this tomorrow on a job, so I'm keen to get this out and have a look at it and put it into action tomorrow. So I'll unbox it and show you what's in there. And this is what's in the box. That's it, nothing else. Pair of loppers, very expensive pair of loppers. It'll be a short video because there's not much I can show you. There's the model. And if you want to have a look them online, see for yourself how much they cost when you do your search. Made in France, and the interesting thing is it seems to have come from Italy. But there you go. It would seem this little popper, washer, whatever you want to call it, is holding on the plastic packaging, so I'm just going to take that off and take it out. And there you go, I've removed it and now it should come out of the packaging nice and easy. Well, there you go, they're out the packaging. That is actually seriously sharp, that blade. They are bypass loppers. There's not an awful lot I can show you. I'll show the other side. And the neat thing is you can obviously buy bits and pieces for this. Very expensive purchase. For what they are. But I'm hoping they'll provide me with years of trouble-free use. They're bypass loppers. I don't know if I said that already. I am after a pair of ratchet, or I've seen from this Bahco they make anvil. I think they're called anvil loppers, and they seem to be on a cam, which looks quite interesting. I'll be using these tomorrow, and yeah, if I can, I'll give some feedback. So here we fast forwarded, and it's obvious that the loppers have had some fairly good use. Nothing excessive. I'd say the amount of material they've actually cut up would probably fill a couple of ton bags at this point. But yeah, I've had some fairly good use of them, and they're quite impressive. So what's interesting for me is, as I say, this lopped up a couple of ton bags worth full of green live vegetation. It was all clean, and I was very careful how I used the tool, and yet I have this burring along the edge of the blade after sort of one job. Now I don't know if this is normal wear and tear and to be expected, or whether it's not. I didn't come into contact with any sort of hard objects that had caused damage like this. For example, like a wire fence, a nail in a tree, or stones on the ground, anything like that. I was very careful. As I say, it was all clean, and yet there's this burring, and I don't know if that's something to be expected or not. I'll only find out, I suppose, as I use the loppers even more. But on that note, I've actually bought a tool to resharpen the blade and to remove the burrs. Annoyingly, a nut from one of the bolts that you see here came off just as I was lopping sort of the last few branches into a 1 ton bag. Thankfully the nut didn't disappear all the way to the bottom of the bag. It was fairly easy to retrieve, and I know if it had been lost, that it wasn't the end of the world. It's fairly easy to replace, but it's a bit pants that it worked loose on its first use. I suppose that indicates that it wasn't properly tightened from when it left the factory. Reassuring to know that the central bolt has a spring clip, which will prevent the same scenario from happening. But I would recommend, if you do have one of these Bahco loppers, just to check that the nuts and bolts are done up nice and snugly so that you don't have the same thing happening to you on a job. Next up are the rubber shock absorbers or buffers located between the handles. Not an awful lot to say about these other than they do an excellent job and work surprisingly well. They absorb a lot of the jolts and jarring associated with lopping, and a nice touch is that Bahco managed to get in some of the orange of their company colours here in the buffers and on the top of the tubes. But yeah, nice and works surprisingly well. What I'm attempting to demonstrate here is a sort of latching action as you open and close the loppers. It's really smooth, very well weighted, and it works extremely well. Once you've got the loppers closed, they will not sort of accidentally drop open, even if you are carrying them by one handle, for example. But having said that, they are easy to open and close, and just, as I say, very well weighted. It's hard to describe, but it just works extremely well. There is no latching in a traditional sense of the word, that the blade can be locked closed, but I think that's normal for most, if not all, lopper designs. Personally though, I think a nice addition would be a plastic transport guard, nothing too fancy, just to protect the blades from damaging anything as they're transported to and from jobs. And maybe they could even go with the company colours of orange, who knows. Moving on now to the handles, which are plastic. They taper in towards the end. As you can see, there is a stippled surface where the user's palms make contact, and yeah, just once again, these are very comfortable, well thought out, and a pleasure to use. I have wondered, from the point of view of a layperson, whether a rubberized material would not be better suited for such a professional range topping lopper such as this one. I know the rubberized material has been used more and more. Most of my other pieces of gardening equipment have a rubberized grip or handle somewhere, but I don't know if it's costs or whether it's not practical, it wears out quicker. I don't know, but just was sort of thinking out loud there. Remember the lovely writing when I unboxed it that said Bahco Professional? Well, that didn't last 5 minutes. The handle tubes themselves are apparently aerospace aluminium, which is very strong and light and designed for long reach and overhead cutting. So, as to give you some idea of the diameter branch these can lop, the bay branch here is around about 40 millimeters in diameter, but these loppers can go all the way up to 50 millimeters in diameter, or 2 inches. And I've actually used them to lop branches of that diameter, and it's very impressive the way it goes through them. But if that's not enough for your lopping needs, then you can go even larger with the P280 from Bahco, which will go all the way to 55 millimeters in diameter. Alongside some lopping action here, it's worth pointing out, and this is generally speaking, that a bypass lopper is for cutting live or green wood. If you're after a lopper for cutting dry, dead, mature, whatever you want to call it, then it's an anvil lopper that you need. So upon wrapping up then, I'm going to do some pros and cons, and I'm going to do the cons first. And my first con is cost. Now, this isn't to say that it's not worth the money. I really want to be clear on that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that owning such a range topping lopper costs, so expect to pay. A proper con though is the nut that fell off on the first day of the job. It's not the end of the world, as I said earlier. It's a nut that could be easily replaced if needed, but it does show that it left the factory not properly tightened up, and that's a bit pants. The other, which may not be a con, I'm not sure, is the burrs on the blade. Now, I don't know if this is to be expected so early on. As I said, it lopped a couple of bulk bags worth of material, but it was all live green wood. I didn't abuse the loppers. So yeah, I don't know if that's to be expected or whether that's not to be expected. Only time will tell with that one. The other thing I think is a con is that it should have a blade guard. Nothing, extravagant, just a plastic blade guard that would prevent any sort of damage transporting the loppers to and from jobs, transporting them around. And as I said earlier, if they wanted to go with orange, that'd be a nice touch. So on to the pros now. And to steal a couple of slogans, is that it's a bit of an animal and it does exactly what it says on the tin. It really will lop all the way up to 50mm or even the next one up 55mm in diameter of live green material, and it's very impressive when it does it. So yeah, it does exactly, there's no hype, it really does it. The next is the parts availability. The fact that you can replace worn out and broken parts, everything such as the blade, the counter blades, the buffers, handle nuts and bolts, the central nut, etc. I'm not too sure about the aluminium tube handles, whether you can get those. They're not on the website. I had a look, but so I can't really comment on that. So those were my personal thoughts regarding these particular Bahco loppers. I hope someone will find this useful and perhaps informative. I'd certainly recommend these loppers, although if you find the price a little outside your budget, then I'd recommend checking out some of the other loppers in the Bahco range. There's probably something that will suit your needs there. But regardless of whatever lopper you go for, remember that a bypass is for green, live material, and that an anvil is for dead, sort of mature wood. Bye for now.